Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, and I have a really special group author interview today with some of the amazing authors of a new book that we have coming out pretty soon, like next week, I think. The Caregivers Advocate, a complete guide to support and resources. This book, you guys, humongous thank you to Debbie DeMoss Compton for our just putting together a stellar cast of co-authors. Debbie is our lead author of the Caregivers Advocate. She's a certified caregivers advocate amongst about 100 other things as it relates to caregiving. And I remember our discussion once upon a time, like just being so excited. We both knew that the world needed this book. And so today I have three of the amazing authors of the book with me to talk about the topic. Debbie, thank you so much for the mission and the energy behind this book. Thank you for being who you are and bringing these authors together. I have Ellen Donovan with me today. She has over 30 years of nursing experience and is the owner of One Life Consulting, where she helps clients and their families find solutions to late life care problems. So Kim Kasaya is with us, and having worked with over 1,500 individuals living with dementia, Kim Kasaya's experience, education, and passion combined together to offer practical strategies and insight for those navigating the world of dementia together with their person. Scott Holmes is with us. He's an intuitive energy healer, walking with professional men and women finding their soul journey. Welcome, everyone. How are you guys doing today? Everyone doing good?
Doing great.
Wonderful.
I've been so excited and a little nervous today. You guys are the first interview, and I know it's like, what? And sometimes when I feel that, I know it's because purpose is burning in there. And this is such an important topic. And I was telling you earlier, we've had so many advanced words of praise about the Caregivers Advocate that have poured in before we've even launched, right? Our advanced readers are reading and loving this book. And so today we're going to hear a little bit from all of you about your chapter and talk a little bit about this topic. So thank you all so much for really pouring your heart out onto these pages. Ellen, you're going to start the party today. Tell us a little bit about your chapter.
Yeah, so my chapter talks about my personal experience with my family, my in-laws, my grandparents, and people that have reached out over the years for help and navigating through whatever difficulty they had in their late life care needs and challenges. And despite some monumental advances in modern medicine, our healthcare system falls really short when it comes to patient experience. And this is especially true for our older adults. And typically, our older adults are treated in like a boilerplate fashion with ineffective communication with providers and insufficient communication with patients and families. And so over the years, I've seen time and time again that the best outcomes happen when somebody is there, an advocate, family member, to support their loved ones with their care needs. So that is what my chapter is basically about, how to support your loved one through whatever health crisis is going on at the time.
Ellen, I think that this is one of the most important topics when we think about caring for our people. And actually, it could be any age person, it could be a family member, it could be a friend. But recently, having had a couple of experiences accompanying a friend to the doctor's office, I left and I thought, oh my gosh, what if I hadn't been there? because there were such obvious things that were being said, and I had to kind of be the bad guy and interrupt a couple times and say, hey, what about this, right? And that's the kind of person you need by your side in those offices. Tell me more about why that's important.
Yeah, that's important because, first of all, we all know how nervous we are when we go to the doctor. And sometimes when you're anxious and nervous, you're not really hearing everything that's being said. And you might not be thinking as clearly as you'd like to, be thinking when you're in this situation. So having a loved one there with you to ask those questions that you might have not thought about, or you might not be remembering, what the doctor said when you leave, all those things are really vital um, for
What
proper care.
what do you think is the biggest thing missing in terms of communication at the doctor's office specifically? What are you not seeing that you'd like to see more of?
I think there's not a lot of communication between specialists and inner, like, different departments. If you have a cardiologist and you have a primary care doctor, is there a lot of communication between those specialists? I think that's lacking. Also endocrinologist, any kind of specialist and the primary care doctor, I feel like that's lacking. There needs to be more interaction there.
So I've got one more question for you about this. Now if we're talking about somebody who is um, elderly, older, has some problems with their own communication, and you're the person in the office, okay, with them. You are the advocate. You're there to make sure the questions get answered and all the things. I've seen this in older family members. They are not asking questions. They'll tell you out of respect, I trust the doctor. I'm not going to step on their toes. I'm not going to be a squeaky wheel. Right. What do you want us to know about that piece?
So most important, I'm sure you know your loved one or you know your friend. And this just recently happened with me when I took my dad to the doctor. I know his personality. He's very he doesn't like to complain. He's very quiet, and whatever the doctor says, he just goes along with. Well, he was having abdominal discomfort and he didn't want to voice that to the physician. So when I was there, the doctor's hearing what he said, but I said, Dad, you don't like to complain. And the doctor doesn't know you very well, but I know, who you are and what you're like. So can you describe the feeling that you have in your stomach? Like, I just worded it a little bit differently to get him to voice it. Well, it is a little bit uncomfortable here. It's a burning sensation. So I kind of was like drawing the words out of him, just, because it's what he's experiencing. But again, just to be there to kind of coach him, to get the treatment that he needs.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for giving that personal example, because I think that's really, really perfect. And I love how you gently guided his description of it, perfectly. And of course, that's the doctor's job, right? He can listen to the symptoms and then he can be like, oh, well, we need to check you out. And then everything is rolling from there. Ellen, thank you so much for saying yes to this project, for being
Oh,
here today.
thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be part of this team.
So, Kim, tell us about your amazing chapter. You ready?
Absolutely. I'm talking about how our senses change throughout this journey of dementia. And I teach a lot of classes. I I have personally found it's that education factor we need. And a lot of folks don't understand how the senses do change for a person. Their vision, how they hear things, what they feel, and that reciprocative touch. And I wanted to highlight that as to, okay, this is different, but it's not the end of the world that it is different. It's just a different way to feel. So that was the main goal that I had there, was to get that message across, because a lot of us don't really know about these things. And I wanted to illustrate that. Um, Throughout my many years of working with my people living with dementia and their families, I have been on many different sides of this equation, from the overwhelmed family member that didn't know anything back in the day when I started, and eventually working at a community and being that personal caregiver, care partner. And it gave me a lot of insight, especially when I went through my own traumatic brain injury. And it really showed me why maybe sometimes my folks living with dementia had the reactions that they did when I got to go through a piece of that myself, and my communication was compromised for many months, and that frustration, and kind of a little bit more about sort of how it feels. I didn't have dementia, but I had very comparable uh, uh, situations or changes for quite some time. And I wanted to really draw our reader into, hey, listen, first of all, this is not just something that happens to an older adult. It can happen to anyone, and it's about brain change too. And that's what I went through.
So I love the topic of senses for lots of reasons, but you're making me think of my grandma and my dad, and also me. So we've got hearing loss going on in the family. And with my grandma, it was hilarious constantly. You would say things to her and she would turn them into a whole nother thing. And we just, and it wasn't funny really, but it was funny. Some of the things that she said were funny, but we always had to be sensitive to walk in the room. You could
Okay.
not shout at her from the kitchen because there would be no way, right? And then I watched it in my dad too. And I was laughing at myself the other day because if the kitchen sink is on and the water is running and you're trying to talk to me, forget it. Like I
Exactly.
can't hear
Yes.
it, right? But it's the awareness and the sensitivity. It's helping with that. But if you don't have the awareness of their sense loss, there's a level of frustration that can happen. Tell me more about that piece.
You know, because when the time, the piece of time when I did suffer my traumatic brain injury, and this was some years ago, I was already a dementia trainer, and I had already been working with our people. And there would be times prior to that, I would be, okay, what are they really trying to tell me? Or they seem like they're so frustrated. And are they angry at me? They're mad at me because I'm not able to understand or help. And then suddenly, I was that person that people would ask me questions, and I'd just be, okay, I'm trying to process, I'm trying to pick out the right words, I'm trying to have them come out in the right tone, in the right order. And sometimes they didn't at all, no matter how much I wanted them to come out correctly. And I would find myself in that similar situation where I'd slam my hand down and just get up and leave. And I was like, holy smokes, all these years I've been working together with my folks, and I didn't understand maybe where some of that frustration was coming from. And when folks would talk slower to me and give me a little extra time to process and to spit it out, that frustration got a lot better. And I wasn't sure for a while whether or not I was recovering from this. And after I recovered, I went back in the trenches. I went to work at a memory care, and especially during COVID, I was there. And it gave me this ability to relate even more so than I ever had before. And working together, altogether, I had about 42 individuals with mid to late state dementia. I was their life enrichment person, their activity person. And it gave me such a better understanding and that ability. My people and I, we related even better because I knew the value of slowing down and kind of taking my time, maybe using those few less words and just waiting and giving my people the respect that I've always wanted to give and have, but it was different because I found a kinship even more so with their changes and some of those fears or those frustrations that happen. So I I wanted to remind each one of my people, you're still important. You are when they have those moments, why am I here? It's like you're here for a lot of reasons. And some of the folks that I have worked with, first of all, they're all here for a bunch of different reasons. And one of the greatest honors for me is when I am teaching my classes, I share my person and I honor them by maybe sharing some of those struggles or some of those frustrations that they had and use that as, all right, yes, she may have seemed difficult or challenging, but she was a mom of 9 kids. Do you expect her to sit at a dining room table during a meal? You know, and they come
That's
alive.
that
And
is
if
awesome,
her
Kim.
family said, "Hey, you got this. Does this happen?" But there's still a greater purpose for all of us.
Yes. And your topic and all of your topics, there's so many lessons in this. Kim, thank you so much for being in this project and for being here today. Scott, we're glad you're back. We lost you there for a minute, and now you're back. Tell us
Yeah,
about your amazing chapter.
sorry about going off.
Oh, no worries.
Ellen and Kim have really made it difficult to come up after them. They've really very passionate. My chapter is chapter 15, Stop the World and Want to Get Off. How to stay sane while caring for your loved one. Sanity. The overwhelm that, and I was a parent of a multiply handicapped child, and how it runs your life when you're doing long-term care for someone, whether it's a parent, a spouse, or a child. There is always that roller coaster you're on because you don't know what the next day is going to bring. Are you going to end up at the hospital? Are you going to end up having to call the doctor? Are you going to the meds going to have to be changed? Did they have an accident? Did they fall down? Did they, there were so many aspects of 24-hour care for those of us who have gone through it, and I've been through it with my wife, my daughter, and my parents. How to stay sane? Wow. One of the things I found that was not asking for help. All right, I got this. We got this. We're going to do it on our own. Because you feel that responsibility, especially with my daughter, you don't ask for help. And when people ask, what can we do? No, nothing, right? It's that I've got this all together and I don't want to, if I add another ball up in the air, I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle it. Whether it's how am I going to get things done? How am I going to get the grocery shopping done? How am I going to get, all of this just day-to-day activities. How do you do that and keep everything going? And for me, I wanted to reach out to parents, especially. There are so many people, and they're unseen because they're a lot of them are housebound because of their children. They're grown-up children who may have difficulties that they've kept them home by choice, and they're getting their 60s, their 70s, their 80s, and they're still caring for a handicapped child, an involved child. So I wanted to be able to allow them to see that they're not alone. I think you've all kind of expressed that there's that kind of aloneness, that that isolation that it brings. We all want to live a wonderful life. We all want to be able to go places, do things, and be very independent. And when that comes back, when that isn't there because of the limitations of caring for somebody else, it just puts such a change to it, makes a change to your life. And so how do you stay sane? Well, you ask for help. When people say, "Hey, can I?" said, "Yeah, but would you mind coming over for an hour so I can just walk around the block? I need to get out of this house. I need to get out and just see something other than these four walls. I need to be able to talk to people." It's very isolating, so people don't know to come. They can't come over. If you've got somebody who's medically involved, they don't want to show up when something, the nurses are there or the therapists are there or anybody else is there. Caregivers are there, and they feel like they're intruding. So it's a matter of mindset. It's a matter of being able to allow. We all grieve what we've lost. We all grieve, but we do that in the daily basis of what we can't do anymore. I saw that when my wife, as she deteriorated through breast cancer, that you grieve those things, having to get through work, not being able to drive, not being able to go downstairs, and it just goes down and down and down. And that grieving process really takes place on a daily basis. It isn't just the one shot deal. It's that little losses all the way down. So it's a matter of perspective and taking care of yourself and finding that 10 minutes, maybe that just 10 minutes in a day that you can give to yourself to be able not to be so wired that you're not the person that you want to be.
You're you're making me think a lot about how this subject, especially through the book chapters, we're talking about loved ones are who have disease, who are advanced in age, they have special circumstances. But Scott, you're making me think of any parent. Like, so I want the listeners to understand that, you, as a caregiver of even your children who don't have special problems or needs, you need to do all of the things that we're talking about today to stay sane. I was listening to you about staying sane, and in my head I'm like, well, cereal for dinner is my way of staying sane. Like, you get to the end of the day and you can't do it, it's okay, mom, cereal for dinner, like you're good, right? But yeah, just that message to parents to it's okay not to have it all your stuff together. And yeah.
And that's and we try to maintain, and I know for us, we try to maintain some semblance of kind of normalcy or what we thought was supposed to be, while we have all of these interruptions, all of these changes, all of these course changes, all of the ups and downs of roller coaster of not never knowing what the next day is going to bring. And it's nearly impossible. It'll break you. And so accepting those changes, not easy,
Yeah.
but I think it's really, really necessary to be able to change your perspective.
Scott, thank you so much for being here in this project.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
I've watched your caregiving journey since I met you. And I think this message is for all of you three, and it's for the entire author cast and Debbie herself. You all are a very special breed of human to be able to do the things that you've done in your lives to take care of the people that you love, but also keep yourself healthy. This is no small potatoes thing. And it's why I have a lot of passion for this particular book. One reason, and this topic. Okay, so Kim, I'm gonna come over to you. What's the most important thing? I know there's probably 100, but what's one important thing you want people to know about caregiving?
Respect your person. That's still a person. Before I left memory care, I waited until COVID had gotten better and they had their family visitations back before I left. And I asked my people, I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go back and teach. And I'm going to teach the people that are going to be working with you and others. What do you want me to tell them? What are your words? And one, slow down. You move too fast, you talk too fast, and you expect me to move too fast. And the second thing they told me to tell you folks, everybody, still listen to us. We still have something to say. May not always make sense, but we got something we want to say, and we're trying to tell you. It's that respect. That's another, it's still a human being, just living with some brain changes.
Super, super powerful, you guys. Oop, there's a little echo there. Sorry about that. That is super powerful. Thank you for that. These golden nuggets, you guys, just talking to our listeners, write down those quotes, write down the things that you want to remember and take back to your family. Scott, what's the most important thing you want people to know about caregiving?
Is being doing it through love. So many times we get frustrated and because we can't, much like you said, Kim, you can't get them to move, or they're being obstinate, or they're being, I want to do it my way. It's the way I've always done it. Why can't I do it that way? And it's just through give care through love and compassion and see them, no matter their abilities or inabilities or whatever, however you view them, to be able to do that. And there are so many times when, especially with my dad, I'd get angry because he just was so darn reticent about doing anything. Well, I'm not going to do, nope. That was his favorite word. At 85 years old, that became his favorite word. He was a 2-year-old. And so I, I just said, all right. Yeah. Cause I would get angry and I'd start to want to, argue with him. And then instead I took a step back. I said, well, why not? And then he explained it and it made sense from his perspective. And I went, okay, I'm just not seeing his perspective. And that changed our entire dichotomy, our entire conversation about what was going on. And it allowed me to take a breath and say, okay, we'll get this done in his time, not in mine.
That's another nugget, you guys. If they're saying no, why not? Go ahead and get an explanation. Why jump to anger or frustration, right? I love that, Scott. Thank you. Ellen, how about you? What's the one most important thing you want people to know about caregiving?
Self-care is never selfish, and really take time for yourself, because we give so much to our loved ones every day. And if we don't take time for ourselves and we get sick, then who will our loved ones have? So find time, whatever that might be, 10 minutes a day. You could do meditation or exercise, walking, going to the gym, anything. Find your happy place and take care of yourself. That's most important.
Really, really important for anybody who cares for anyone who serves others in life or business, for anyone who wants to live a healthy life and be out there and be in community. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm like sitting here writing notes to respect, love, self-care, right? We've got some power words here. Scott, many people in our healer community talk about the fact that everything happens for us, not to us. Has that idea helped you? Why or why not?
Absolutely. When my daughter first got sick, it was the automatic response was, why her, why me, why us, why trying to get an understanding of, this came out of the blue, it was an illness. Why her? And as we walked through this, that really faded because my wife and I learned to accept this is what it is. It's not something that happened to us. It's just accepting what's in front of us. I found that the most difficult part when I was dealing with my parents was that they didn't want to deal with what was in front of them. They wanted to deal with 30 years ago. I used to be able to fill in the blank, and now they couldn't. And it was just that ability to see what is in front of you and accept it, and all the other stuff goes away. All the should-haves, could-haves, would-haves, all the hope fors down the line. You're staying in the present. I mean, when we talk with all the modalities and
Oh, we might be losing Scott again, you guys. We'll see what happens. All right, Mr. Scott, you have frozen officially. So I am going to pause your answer there and move over to Ellen for a minute. We'll see if you want to come back, go out and come back in again. I get what he's saying about that. And this takes, I think, a warrior. It takes other level mindset. It takes other level presence and awareness. And I know Scott has made a life practice out of those things, as I think all of us have, and everybody in this book. Ellen, same question for you. So, that idea that everything happens for us, not to us, has that helped you? Why or why not?
Yes, it really has helped me. I truly believe every experience I've been through with my family members has really brought me to this point in my career, in my life, in my mission. This is God's plan for me, for what I'm supposed to be doing. So even though it's been painful, I've learned so much through it. And now just writing this chapter in this book, I'm able to give my experience to other people and to educate them and give them some tools that they'll have to help their loved ones. So I'm blessed to be part of this.
Yeah, you're speaking of a faith and a trust, and wow, that is a daily practice, hourly sometimes, right? Yeah, and the tools that you're all offering in the book are so phenomenal. And I'll mention that here for a moment. Our authors all stepped up with a personal story, and then they're stepping up in the second half of the chapters with something you can practice, a tool, a practice, a strategy, an exercise, something. And some of them are for the caregiver. Some of them are for when you're working with the person you're caring for. There is a whole host of different kinds of practical, effective, powerful tools. And that's so when Ellen said that just now, I'm like, yes, like I think this is really, really other level phenomenal. Scott, we're glad you're back. All right. Kim's going to close us out today with her answer to that. Kim, that idea that everything happens for us, not to us. What are your 2 cents about that?
Everything does happen for a reason. And, my grandmother, which was my first introduction to dementia many, many years ago, it was overwhelming. I didn't know why her of all people. But I realized sometimes the reason becomes clear, maybe not even in that individual's lifetime. But sooner or later, it does bubble to the top. If my grandmother hadn't been the person to introduce me to this and to really light that passion and that fire in me, I wouldn't have dedicated my life to teaching and working with people. So sometimes that reason can come clear in just a few minutes, a year, 10 years, or maybe after your lifetime too. I made my grandmother's life bigger through dementia, through sharing the journey that she went through, what I went through, what we all went through. She's the one that taught me those things that you fear, you learn about the most. And I don't have any fear when it comes to this at all. No.
That's nice. That's a nice note. That's another nugget. I hope you guys wrote that one down too. I love that, Kim. Ellen, Scott, Kim, to all three of you, thank you so much. Thanks for what you put into this book. Thank you for doing what you do in the world. And thanks for being here, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So, yeah, you guys might have heard something today that sparked you, that gave you the goosebumps that you were writing down. What I want you to know is this is way more than a book. It is a very generous community of master teachers and healers. Drop down into the show notes because I have all of our authors hooked up with their links and websites. Please go explore all of what they're offering. It is really amazing. And we want you to reach out. We want to answer a question. We want to give you the support that you need. Scott said it earlier. Sometimes the hardest thing is to ask for help. Well, you now have a team on your side. And the book has the beautiful chapters, but Debbie has also put together an entire resources section in this book. So basically, whatever you're looking for, we're going to help you find it. And you have a team of very caring, generous people to help you do that. So also remember, you could join us for our book launch party if you want to come rub elbows with some of our amazing authors. That's going to be July 8th, 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm going to gather with all of the authors of the Caregivers Advocate, and we're going to be doing some fun stuff that day on Zoom. We're going to have some giveaways and all kinds of cool things. And if you happen to be listening to this interview beyond that date, well, that just means you got to get over to Amazon and buy your copy of this amazing book. Lastly, today, everyone, remember your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.